What's good with YouTube? It's your man Cosplay Ray, and we're back with another episode of We Are Epic Cosplay. On this video, we are continuing our journey on part 3 of the start of my Batman Mech Suit grapple gun. So in previous videos, we have already tackled basically putting the main body together to a certain degree. Now we're working on the handle. So at this point right now, I am just putting on the part that goes right underneath at the top pretty much of the handle that also connects to the connector point from the handle to the main portion of the body. So it's all about detail now. So the main part of the body has already been put together, and you could check that out in previous videos if you want to see how I had got to that point so far. So now I am basically using my reference pictures to get all the little detail work into the handle. So we're going to start up with the top of the handle, working our way down, all the way down to I guess what you could call kind of like the pommel of this particular grapple gun. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the templates that I had previously made to make that connector point from the handle to the main body, and I'm trimming it down, and I'm gonna make the template that I need now to completely cover the back end of the connector point. So it takes some time, but you know what, it's always worth it in the end if you give it your all. So right now I'm just basically sketching out what I need on, I believe I used 6mm craft foam. And then you're just going to cut it out. So what I had to do is I had to make basically 2 pieces to go on both sides of the, I guess it's kind of like more like a compressed wood opposed to actual wood. If you've been to Home Depot, I think you might know what I'm talking about. It's smooth on both sides. There's no grain to it, so it's more, I would say, yeah, it was more of a compressed wood. The handle itself is actually a wooden dowel, so that one I believe was actually wood. And what I had to do was actually sand down a little bit at the top of the handle itself to make it flush enough so I could evenly glue these pieces onto the foam piece that I had slid up over the handle that is like at the top now of the handle. And if you're wondering what type of glue I'm using Zap-A-Gap. No, I don't get paid for saying that, but I do prefer that particular glue. A friend of mine put me onto that, wow, like I want to say like 7-8 years ago, and I've been using it ever since. It's the only like super glue that I really like to use. So pretty much I'm doing everything by kind of like by eye, but I use the templates when I have them, and for the most part I will make a template and keep it until I no longer use it and you need to use it, and then pretty much it gets discarded. So some people actually keep the majority of the templates. If it's something that I feel like I might want to reuse later on, yeah, I'll definitely make sure I put my templates aside. But for the most part, I just make the template, use it for its purpose, and then move on to the next piece. So what I'm going to do here now is now that I'm getting the piece pretty much sized the way that I need it to, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom of the piece and glue it to the foam piece that I slid up onto the handle itself. I'll do that on both sides, and then I'll actually glue the piece to the wood composite. And if you see what I'm doing right here, I'm actually kind of just going off to the side and using my Dremel tool to sand down what I need to sand down. So for tools for this particular build, I really like to use my roller ruler. If you don't know what a roller ruler is, I think they're kind of hard to find right about now, but it's a ruler that I am able to make like perfect parallel lines with. And it basically is a ruler on like a rolling spindle, which allows you to roll it back and forth and make absolutely perfect parallel lines. I love to use that for making sure that all my lines are the way that I need them to be, and everything is, you know, measured out exactly the way it needs to be. You also want to make sure you have yourself a Dremel. I think a Dremel is very important when you're crafting because it has a saw, like a cutting bit, and it has a sanding bit. It has you can get one with an engraving bit. All these things will come in very handy when you're doing stuff like this. You definitely want to make sure that you have a sharp X-Acto blade or some kind of cutting knife with some kind of sharpener, like a blade sharpener. That way you can keep your blade sharp, and your cuts will be nice and clean in between when you're cutting. If you ever notice that a blade can get dull really quickly, even though it's a new blade, can get dull very quickly cutting through foam. So it's important to have a blade sharpener. And of course, I use my Zap-A-Gap, so you want to have some kind of glue. Contact cement comes in very handy for bigger builds, but for this particular build, it was pretty much all Zap-A-Gap glue. So here I am, just gluing the top piece on to complete that look that's at the top of the handle. And now I'm gluing the side piece on. Easy peasy. So I would say basically the biggest part will be once I get actually started with the handle or the grip. So that would be probably the biggest thing, because you want to make sure that you are able to get the grip to cover completely around the handle itself. And then later on, there are raised portions that will go onto the grip as well. So trying to get those, straight could be a little tricky, but I'm sure you can do it. I got faith in you. So here I am gluing, like I said, both pieces to the side of that wood composite connector that goes from the handle to the main portion of the body of the grapple gun. And remember, when you're using Zap-A-Gap, a little actually will go a long way. So you don't need to really saturate your piece too much. A little bit of glue will go a long way with Zap-A-Gap. And right here I found that there was a little bit of a crack in this composite wood, so I'm actually using the Zap-A-Gap, which it's also meant for, to fill gaps, hence Zap-A-Gap. Now I'm just cleaning off and leveling out some of these edges. Try to get a nice smooth one-piece look. This was definitely a fun build. I had inquired around whether or not there were anybody that could actually 3D print this, but nobody seemed to have any files. So what do? Say the heck with it and go for it. Try to make it yourself. Once again, just using my rotary tool to sand down some of those edges. And as you see, it's coming along pretty nice. It looks like one solid piece. So, starting to look like something. Okay, I think at this point it's time to measure out the size of the foam that I'm going to need for the grip. And once again, I am looking at my reference pictures to figure out exactly how far the grip needs to extend down the handle. So remember, reference pictures are extremely important to make sure that you are able to get your project looking as close to it as you can get it. And here is the 6mm foam, craft foam. I believe you can purchase this foam either at your fabric store or a craft store. And you always want to make sure you get your measurements as close as you can. If you need to, you can always write down your measurements on a piece of paper so you have them readily available. Or you can make a template and then use that template to cut out your foam. On this particular piece right here, I just kind of drew all my shapes down on the foam, also using the roller ruler once again, because like I said, you can make pretty much perfect parallel lines. Okay, on one of these cuts, I'm actually going to make it at a 45-degree angle outward, because there's a bevel edge on the bottom of the grip. So I want to make sure that I'm making that cut at a 45-degree angle outward. Because once you glue it all together, you'll get a nice 45-degree angle that will go inward at the bottom. So we'll kind of like taper in at the bottom. Now, if you wanted to, at this point, you could actually heat your foam with the heat gun. That's another tool that you should definitely make sure you have if you're a crafter. Definitely make sure you get yourself at least a two-level heat gun. You know, you want to have a high and you want to make sure you have a low. So make sure you get a two-level heat gun. And you could always heat up your piece and kind of like wrap it around your handle and hold it for a little bit, and then it will keep that shape a whole lot better. So when you plan on gluing your handle in place, you'll already have the shape already embedded kind of like into the foam, so it'd be a lot easier to glue into place. So right here, I'm basically just trying to get the right thickness or the right width of this grip. So I'm going to keep just putting it on there, seeing where it is. If it's still a little too big, trim a little off. It's better to have it bigger and trim off than to trim off too much and then find that you have to try to add a piece to fill that piece back up, or basically scrap that piece and have to cut a whole complete new one. So at this point, I think I pretty much have the size that I need to, and I'm going to actually use Zap-A-Gap to pretty much glue that together. So I believe I might actually take it off the handle and then glue it together. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Be on the lookout for my next video, which will go a little bit more into what we're doing. And remember, hashtag I cosplay my way, and you can too. And you should too. And if you like this video, make sure that you hit the subscription button and that notification bell so you know when I put out the next video. Peace.